Good evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Um, my name is Gina Duvernay. I'm the Adult Services Manager for Gwinnett County Public Library. Today, I'm honored to introduce tonight's author and moderator for the evening. Tonight, moderating the talk will be Jim Argendelli. Jim Argendelli is a freelance writer, a book reviewer, an avid reader, a bibliophile, and is a former college radio DJ. He is a big fan and supporter of the Gwinnett County Public Library. Our author for the evening is Josh Malerman. He is a New York Times bestselling author and one of two singer-songwriters for the rock band The High Strung. He is best known for writing horror, and his debut post-apocalyptic novel, Bird Box, was the inspiration for the hit Netflix film of the same name. His other novels include Daphne Pearl, Spin a Black Yarn, and Mallory, the sequel to Bird Box. Malerman lives in Chicago with his fiance. Jim, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gina. I appreciate it. So, Josh, how are you doing tonight?
Good. I wish I was there instead, but I'm very, very, very glad to be talking to you.
Well, we're glad you're here. So I know we have a lot of people watching online as well. We even have a little bit of a crowd sitting in front of me.
I know, it's amazing. It makes me feel even weirder that I'm not there. And I love you all for being here. And I also love Atlanta. I play in a band who toured the country for like 6 years. We're talking like 05 to 2011 area. And we played Atlanta, 20 times. So I've been, what's it called? 5 Points or Little 5 Point or something like that, right?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And we played like in that area, like every time around, like a few times a year. And I love that city. And thank you for doing this, regardless of me not being able to make it there. But
we appreciate your time.
Oh, all right.
So, before I get started, I also want to congratulate you. I know you won a World Fantasy Award for a novelette just recently. Half the House is Haunted from your collection, Spin a Black Yarn. So good for you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was completely unexpected. That's the first time I've even been really nominated for something outside of horror. And as someone who horror is home, but as someone who likes to think that he's elastic as a writer, or at least wants to have some elasticity, to be nominated even in a non-horror thing at all was a shock to me. And then yesterday the dude writes me, "Congratulations." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "Are you kidding?" He goes, "I wouldn't lie about that." So yeah,
I think it's fantastic. And then, maybe more people actually pick up the novelette collection that it's in, and hey, it doesn't hurt to get more publicity, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
So talking about your latest book, it's doing really well. Incidents Around the House, it's fantastic. I read it and really enjoyed it.
Wow,
I call it creepingly compelling.
Oh, awesome.
My description of it.
It's great. Yeah.
Love everything about it. This is a really solid read, and I think it's fantastic. Ask you a little bit of questions about it. When you're writing a story, do you think about how it will resonate with the audience? Or is it just basically, I know some writers go, "This is just for me." And if the audience gets it, fantastic. If they don't, that's the way it goes.
I almost feel like and I'll bet everyone can relate to this in their own life. I almost feel like there's a double think involved where you could sit down and write a book and you can say to yourself, "Hey man, this doesn't matter if this is good or bad. I don't care if this is good, bad, great, spectacular, failure, whatever." And that's sort of the liberating part of writing the book, right? At the same time, you can be thinking, "Man, I hope this is awesome. Man, this is gonna be amazing. This is gonna be," and I feel like that same double thing can be applied to that question. Like, no, I mean, yes, of course, I'm thinking of like an audience. How could you not, right? If people that have read Goblin and Bird Box, how could you not wonder or think, what are people going to think of this? But at the same time, the ultimate, I guess, the best comparison I can think of is let's take a comedian, right? And if the comedian does this joke make me laugh, right? And same thing here, but especially with incidents, like a scare. Like, am I scared right now? Am I moved? Am I freaked out while writing this in the office? And this book, especially, that answer was yes. This is I've written 40 books now. I had written like something like 14 before Bird Box came out. So I kind of got a weird publishing history story. And I never thought anything was going to come out. I was just excitedly writing and writing, but whatever. This is the first book I've ever written with no music. And every book's had, either the bandmates were listening to, and believe me, it's hard to write a scary scene when Jerry Garcia is singing. But anyway, and then here at home, I have a little record player that you can see right there. And there's a bunch of like horror soundtracks in the office or in this closet over here. And so I'll like put on like Silence of the Lambs, The Shining, Scream, whatever it is. I could not find the right feeling for Incidents Around the House. I couldn't find it. And I'm like, hey, dude, have you ever like thought of just writing to silence? So now, dark house, 10 at night, no music. Allison's doing whatever she's doing. That's my fiance doing something somewhere else. I'm like alone in this silent house, and I feel like that musiclessness, that lack of music, I can hear that in Incidents Around the House. And so, is that me writing for an audience, or is that performing for myself? I don't know. I think it's both, but I do know that I scared the hell out of myself writing this book.
Speaking of that, this book is done very well. It's gone into a 6th printing.
Yeah, no, I don't even know what's going on.
You know, like, you got to be happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't mean to sound so like noble when I say this. I try not to think of the books in sales, right? Because I don't want to think Goblin is better than Unburied Carol because it did better. I don't want to think Incidents is better than this because it did better. Like that's like seems like slippery footing to me or something. I want to love them all, love all the ideas. Let's write da da da. But I can't ignore what's going on with Incidents right now. I'm like checking the like the sales every day for the first time in my life. I'm like, woo, like this is amazing. And it is amazing. I don't know why this one, maybe it was the lack of music in the office. I don't know. I don't know why this one is catching on the way that it has. But I mean, I'm freaking thrilled for it, obviously.
You mentioned Allison, and you also mentioned how this book scared the hell out of you
Yeah.
while you were writing it. I wanted to actually, I had written one of my questions was about that. Do you scare yourself when you're writing your material? Is this the first time this really happened to you? Because you know what you're writing. I mean, are you a little creeped out if you hear a sound while you're writing something?
Yes.
Was
No, yes.
behind me, or
yes. No, 100%. And I don't know if you can see like these dark windows behind me lead out to like woods out there. I mean, come on, man. And there's a closet. There's a closet right on the other side of this computer. And I'm in the dark writing about other mommy is talking to Bella from the closet, and she slithers out on her belly. And I'm like, oh man, hold on, just wait 1 second. And there were a few times where if you remember the scene at Evelyn's house, the bathroom scene.
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Exactly what you're talking about.
So I was like, I finished that scene and I left the office. I went and found Allison, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? What are you doing? And she's like, are you freaked out right now? And I was like, no. I just was curious what you're doing. And she's like, dude, you just scared yourself. I'm like, yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, because if you're a pantser, right? If you're writing for someone who might not know, there's a plotter, somebody who maps everything out, and then there's a pantser, which I mostly am. There's a few landmark moments in mind, but mostly it's reading it as you're writing it. I didn't know exactly what was going to happen at Evelyn's house, but I knew it was a very bad idea for mommy and daddo to get drunk.
You said when you're writing, so you don't outline your stuff, it sounds like. Or do you know, like I know some writers say they know exactly how it's going to end. I know Joe Lansdale writes straight from the cuff when he writes, he has no idea where the character's going to take him.
I love that he's amazing. He is that dude. Oh my God. Anyway, so again, no, not an outline, but above the closet on the other side of this, there's like 10 sort of bullet points that I wrote like on the office wall one night that before writing the book. Mm-hmm. So one of those is the very first one. At the time in the outline, she was 5. Now she's 8 in the book. Can a 5-year-old narrate an entire novel without being unreliable? And that was one of like the pillars of the book, is that this is not an unreliable narrator. It's not an imaginary friend. It's not Bella, doesn't remember. It's not her creation. She's not lying to her parents. What Bella is telling us is real, is 100% happening. So that was pillar number one. And I feel like pillar number two was, and that's written on there as well, is that mommy, daddo, and anybody that experiences other mommy, I want them to react like, I don't want it to be like I know what to do. No, nobody knows what to do. The police, the church, ghost hunter, an occultist, family, friends, a doctor, Bella. Nobody knows what to do about other mommy. And I feel like I'm not like a realist. I'm not chasing realism. But in this scenario, with other mommy, to throw in the realism of the reaction to it, right? That was scary to me. Because like, okay, if I don't have any kids, but if I did, and I went upstairs and I saw that thing sitting on the end of my kid's bed, like using my wife's voice or something, man, I don't even know that I would have grabbed the kid. I think I just would have ran. And then I would have been like, wait, hold on, I gotta go get Bella, Like I don't know what I would have done. And I wanted the characters in the book to like, I wanted that feeling. So in other words, is that an outline? But that's what's written on the wall. Like, Josh, keep these things in mind at all times. Bella's never unreliable, and nobody knows what the hell to do about this thing.
I also like the mythology of what's happening to Bella. It's not 100% explained, and I like that. I don't think the reader needs to know everything, like all the rules of the manifestation. She doesn't know the rules, so necessarily the reader doesn't really necessarily have to know the rules. And I think that works 100% for this book. I like that a lot. I know some people may not necessarily, they want an explanation for everything. Sometimes you do in some, novels or movies, and sometimes it works the other way. Or in this case, I think it's perfect exactly how you wrote it.
Well, I know exactly what you mean, because I imagine everyone in the room and you and I both have wanted or not wanted that from books as well, right? It's not like we have like a singular taste, like I want every book buttoned up or I want every book to be vague. No, it's dependent on the actual story. I at some point while writing Incidents Around the House, I was like, okay, I felt like we've obviously seen many, especially horror fans, we've seen so many possession stories, and possession stories, for whatever reasons, are the ones that F me up the most. Like I get so freaked out by possession stories. But what I had never seen before was a magnifying glass put up to the entity's attempt to get in. So I've seen, and I'm not saying, oh, I'm so original. I'm just saying in terms of what excited me about writing it. Like, we've seen typically there's a family or there's a scenario, and then a character starts acting weird, and they're possessed. How do we get it out? Right? But what about an entire novel of that thing trying to get in? And that's when incidents started to like roll for me. I was like, oh my God, I can extend this question, can I go into your heart, until literally the end of the novel. And that's where I started to feel like I was writing with like or telling a story by way of a magnifying glass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super thrilling.
We brought up Bella before. Obviously, she's the narrator of the stories told through her point of view. How did you come up with her voice? You said you have no children. So where did you, was this completely on your point of imagination, or people with kids? How did that work out?
Yeah, no, I have like nieces and nephews, and all my bandmates have kids, but oh, dude, it was embarrassing to read the rough draft, because I read the rough draft and it was like, I had Bella saying stuff like, "Mother sits beside me upon the couch." I'm like, no, 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 no. Hold on. Like, there were so many lines, and it's not about dumbing her down. It's not that. It's not like,
well, she's
Bella,
not a baby, so exactly.
right. It's not a baby or like, I mean, Bella's an intelligent human being, and it's like, so it's not about dumbing it down. It's more like, would she say this? Would she say, "Mother sits beside me upon the couch"? No, she'd be like, "Mommy's next to me." And I'd be like, "Okay, I'm on the couch. Mommy's next to me." I'm like, right, okay, that worked, So there was a lot of, I don't want to say scaling back, but there were a lot of like trimming, like prosier stuff from the rough draft.
I've read quite a bit of your work, and
Wow.
you know, you start off with an end of the world apocalypse novel, then you know, you have a cyberpunk western, a sci-fi thriller, slasher story, uh, and now a haunted house book, so to speak, but I don't want to give too much away. Um, how do you feel about moving around with the different genres? I like that, but you know, what's that like? Is that a purpose, or you just go, I'm ready to do something different and move on from there? Because a lot of writers will stick with what works rather than try to jump around.
I think, okay, the very first horror movie I ever saw was Twilight Zone, the movie. Do you remember this with Dan
I do
Aykroyd?
remember,
Yeah.
yes.
It's the first one I ever saw. I was 11 or 10, whatever. It was on a VHS. And that's an anthology. It's four,
I think it was four with the
and the
bookends.
wraparound,
That
right?
was
So the
right.
four stories. And it was like, there's the social commentary, the opening, the really dark story. There's the heartwarming kind of story, the Steven
That's right.
Spielberg one. There's the totally bonkers, my favorite, Anthony and his imagination can do anything. And then there was the creature feature, John Lithgow on the airplane. And so and the second horror movie I saw was Creepshow. So 5 more stories.
Right.
Those were a little more akin to each other, though. Still, my introduction to the genre was this total elasticity, this total like taffy. It wasn't just a vampire or universal monsters or this dread. There was like, I mean, the distance between Spielberg's segment and Lithgow on the airplane is infinite, but they're both in a horror movie. So right away at age like 10 or 11, I was like, man, horror can be anything. And it was like I was smitten by that. I'm like, you could take, I mean, this guitar next to me could be a horror story. This Zoom session we're having could be a horror. Suddenly it felt like everything could work in that way or something. So years later, and I'm a huge Twilight Zone the show fan. Years later, I find myself like in interviews and being asked. I am asked that one a bit, like, none of these two are really alike, or they seem very different, voice or whatever. Is that intentional? And I'm like, I don't know if it's intentional. It's just that was how I entered the genre, was seeing it that way.
Well, like I said, I enjoy that because I don't really know where, unless you read the description of the book, you don't really know what it's going to be about. And then you read it, go, well, I didn't expect this, but it works.
Right.
And, they've all been compelling reads. I have, nothing but praise on them. I also like something you did, well, a lot of what you did with Incidents Around the House. But one of the things I did was sort of like an Easter egg to previous readers, especially of Goblin.
Oh, wow. You have that one. Allison made that cover. Yeah, my fiance Drew painted that cover. I have the original painting.
I saw that back there.
Yeah, like it's back here, son. Yeah. Oh no, it's right there. Yep, right. Yeah.
And I like an Incidents Around the House where at one point they want to discuss what's going on, and they go, why don't we go to visit Goblin, do it in Goblin because it's far from the house, thinking that the distance might make a difference. And I'm like, oh, a shout out to people who've read Goblin.
Yeah.
With it. I really like shout outs or Easter eggs with that. It doesn't hurt the book if you've never read or familiar with Goblin,
right.
But the people who have read it go, I'm one of the readers that he's sort of saying, I appreciate it. I'm going to throw Goblin in there for you guys. And I'd like for you to keep doing that kind of stuff, which is fantastic.
I mean, I guess after a while, God, I can't even believe it's 40 books now. That doesn't even that's insane. Anyway, after a while you start, like a few cities have like risen up. Sam Hatton, Goblin, and Chaps. And Goblin's definitely the most sort of specifically colorful, odd of the three. I have to be in the right headspace if I'm going to tell a story in Goblin. I have to be in the exact right headspace where I could tell just about any story in Sam Hatton. And so, yeah, like for this, it made sense to me that they're like, we need to go somewhere that's not here. And I was like, well, they do actually spend some time downtown Goblin, right? But Goblin's house is like the outskirts of Goblin. And I kind of liked that. I kind of like, okay, so we'll put it on the very edge and we're still involved, but not entirely. Yeah.
Now, I know Earthling has asked me to ask you if you do another collection like Goblin, they want to be the ones to publish it. So,
oh man,
I'm throwing that out for Earthling.
Yeah, Paul Miller, the best, man.
I wanted to ask you, what events in your personal life give you stories, ideas? I know you had COVID recently back in August, I think it was. So that can give you some ideas for future things or what? And if not, what about your previous
Yeah,
work?
that we had COVID for like 3 weeks, like testing positive, like feverish. It was terrible. I've had it twice before, but this was terrible. And we got it in Chicago. We got it at a convention at like a signing in Chicago. And I afterwards, Alice and I were walking around Evanston, and I was carrying like her bag for her, like this little bag, and it felt like a bowling ball. And I started like eyeing park benches. I'm like, ooh, that looks fun. That looks nice. That's a nice park bench. Ooh, that's a nice place to sit down. And Allison's like trotting along. And I was like, oh shit, I'm sick. I can't like, dude, your bag feels like a like barbell, and I can't even like. I don't know. There are some subjects that I would, I guess, avoid just because we all kind of want to move on from them. I think like I don't think I would write a pandemic book because I think, we all like I don't want the reader to be thinking about a freaking pandemic, you know what I mean? I don't like where we just went through that like sludgy experience. But then there are obviously other experiences like falling in love with Allison. Of course, I would love like an entire, what even a horror story like based around the spirit, the fire, the electricity of that experience. Not having kids while all my friends and family do. I would love to write a story about that. Like, so yes, definitely from the life, but there are certain things like politically and stuff. Well, I'm not, and I don't mean that I think it's bad to write about politics, but in certain ways, I want, what's the right phrase? I want to like turn the reader on while and inspire them rather than like bring up a subject that's like so like, oh God, they're gonna see this subject all day.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
No, I could see that. People I know, some readers go, they don't want to read anything about a pandemic. Is especially
Yeah,
just after the
right.
COVID, a couple of years ago, they said no interest in that at all. It's still, on the cusp of their mind, they're still thinking about. They still see news stories about it maybe coming back, and they go, they read for entertainment for the most part. I don't want to read something that's too soon. Or they may have had family members who had been sick, or they may have been sick. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah,
something that
no, exactly.
I
Yeah.
can understand. The reader's point of view, 100%. Um, Speaking of readers, who are you a fan of? Who do you like? You mentioned Joe Lansdale earlier.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, I go on benders where I'll get into someone and then I'll read like everything they ever wrote. I read Interview with the Vampire. I'm looking right now. There's like 20 Anne Rice books in a row. I was like, I like to like that guy Junji Ito, those graphic novels like Uzumaki and I don't know how to say it, Gyo or Gyo, Uzumaki Tomi. Do you guys know anyone out there know Junji Ito? No? It's oh my God, trust me, go check it out. It's like Mount Rushmore horror mind, this guy. And now, I read one, now I read like 19 in a row. I went on a real experience, grew up with horror, and then had this weird stretch in my life where I sort of like didn't read any horror at all. I'm talking about when I was like 21, 23, somewhere around there, where I read all books by Faulkner, Fitzgerald, Ellison, Virginia Woolf, Proust. I just read Proust's entire book, by the way. That's a whole other conversation. Oh my God. And so I'm going through all these classics, and and if you remember, Barnes and Noble used to have like their version of the classics, like,
That's right.
yeah, Pride and Prejudice with the Barnes and Noble cover, and I'm like sort of like firing off these classics, and it took me to Dracula, and I was like, oh, Dracula, wow, should I read Dracula? And I was like, and I was 23 or something. And then I read it and I was like, oh my God, I forget, like I hadn't been with horror in a few years, and it like Dracula showed me, reminded me, taught me that horror can be a classic, that horror can be as high and as elevated, no, I don't have elevated, but as brilliant as anything you've ever read. And I think that I forgot that for a second, and maybe I'm glad I forgot it for a second, because when I boomeranged back to Dracula, it was this profound experience for me. And I've been on a pretty strict horror diet since then. It's been terrible for my skin. No.
Well, there's nothing wrong with horror. I mean, especially this time of year. You'd mentioned music earlier. Uh, I know you're with your band and been doing this for quite a few years. I think I read you since you were like about 15 years old.
We all became best friends when we were like 11, and then a couple of us were already playing, like three of us were already playing or whatever. And then Mark and I didn't really start till we were 19. And I had already by then, I was trying to write short stories and writing the worst emo poems you can possibly. I have a whole box in this closet. I have an entire box of like notebooks of emo poems that, oh my God. Oh my God. One day I'm going to open that up and be like, oh, this is better than what I'm doing now. And then, but anyway, the band, our best friends are all musicians. Mark and I are writing, and it was sort of this logical, like, hey, you guys are writing poems and stuff. Would you consider writing songs? And it kind of like, 19-year-old logic, right? You write, why don't you write songs? Okay. And then like we all have been playing regularly since then. We have a show Saturday night.
I'm sorry.
We're playing like we're playing together Saturday night.
What do you find compared to writing books or writing music, different skills, but what comes easier to you?
I don't know. I think the novel is like the freest, like most liberating like thing for me. I think it always kind of has been. And it's not that there's no one else involved because I love working with them. Like it's not that. It's not some like, oh, anything I say. No, it's just so liberating. Like I even when I've tried to write a script or even short stories or whatever, I can sometimes feel a little like restrained. And the novel is just like anything goes, man. Any style, any tangent, halfway through you can introduce a character that's a star, whatever you want to do. So the novel is like for an imaginative person, the novel is so freeing for me. So I guess if pressed, I would say the novel.
Okay. They adopted your first book, Bird Box, for Netflix with Sandra Bullock. What was that experience like, and how did that come about?
So I had met before I got a book deal or anything. I had met a manager, like a manager who had never managed an author before. He managed screenwriters, but he read Bird Box and he was like, "Listen, I'm telling you, if we get a book deal for this, I'm going to get you a movie deal for this right away." And this is a guy that had never done this. He's my age. And his name's Ryan Lewis. And Ryan's like, and I just met him on the phone, you know what I mean? And I'm like, there was something about him, like he was level-headed, he was smart, he was optimistic, but practical. There was something about him that I was like, this is like the foot in reality that I don't have. This guy has. I'm in the clouds. This guy has one foot in the ground. And I just like trusted him. And I'm like, all right, all right. And I was like rewriting and he would like advise me and da-da-da. And we got it to an agent and Bird Box, and she shopped it to HarperCollins. It gets picked up and Ryan got the movie set up at Universal like within like 3 months after that or something. It was crazy. The whole time for a couple of years, this guy's telling me I'm going to make this happen. And then he did. And it's the first time he's ever made it happen. It was really, I just talked to him today. We've talked, we've been together for like 15 years now or something. And so it was originally set up with Universal and then Netflix bought it from Universal, just so you knew. But yeah, you can imagine how insane that period was for me because I had already written some 14 novels and I'm rewriting Bird Box for really, I don't know why, I don't know what's going to happen here. And really, I would say that I owe like, God, man, I like owe this whole freaking thing to like Ryan Lewis and Kristen, the agent, and my friend Dave Simmer, who introduced me to like Wayne and Ryan. And so, yeah, that Ryan was the reason and how that happened.
How did you feel about the film when you finally saw it?
I mean, I feel like in a way I'm the worst person to ask because like I was like so overwhelmed and so I mean we saw it in the Netflix like headquarters in this room called the Upside Down, and Allison and I and like my lawyer and Ryan, and the opening scene and Mallory's like talking like just like in the book, and it opened, and I was like, and I just started like crying, because I wrote the rough draft for Bird Box in 06, the rough draft.
Okay.
And I rewrote it in a major way in 2010. It gets picked up in 2012 and it comes out in 14. The movie is not till like 19. So I had been with Mallory for 13 years when that movie came out. So you can imagine, and I had by then written like 26 or 7 books by the time the movie came out. And like you can imagine what that meant for me. I met her on set. I met Sandra Bullock, and I was like, met her at 2 like premiere parties, and that all sounds fancier than it was. Like I feel like some people, like if you say that, they're like they imagine you like sipping martinis at a poolside. Like no. But I met
That's
her.
exactly what I was thinking when you said that.
Right? We were hanging out in a $sign swimming pool. We each had a cheetah.
No, I could definitely see that people try to come up to you and your bodyguards say, "Not now, he's busy."
Right. My bodyguard. Yeah, it was just her.
No pictures. Don't talk.
Yeah.
Don't look at him in the eye when you
He
go
was like,
outside.
Josh, you are so dashing.
I
No,
get that
no,
myself. I just
no,
completely understand that.
It was more like a 2
Any other
minute.
productions in the work and coming up?
Oh, movie wise?
Any other movie
Yeah.
deals or TV deals coming up?
Yeah, I'm just gonna tell you, even though I'm not supposed to, Incidents Around the House is in a really good spot right now. I read the script already. I read the rewrite of the script already. You're getting a scoop right now. No, I don't know if you but it's set up and there's an awesome director, and I don't know. It looks good right now. Some other ones are in good spots too. A different novella from that collection.
Okay.
That one, a different one won that award. This other one's in a good spot on the film side. Unburied Carol has something really exciting happening. Another short story of mine, the Jupiter Drop. But Incidents Around the House like feels like this could happen like soon. So Alice and I are over here like please.
Wanted to ask you about Incidents. You already told me just that. It was fantastic. Perfect casting for that movie would be if you're in charge of the casting, anybody you want.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what.
Bella's going to be the toughest.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Beside Bella,
I was about to say that.
I go with.
I mean, Bella's got to be some unknown. Right? Well, I'll tell you what. If they want Sandra Bullock to be Bella, I'll be fine. I don't care. They can pick anyone. No, I don't. Bella's gonna be tough, man. It's got to be like some unknown, right? I mean, she's 8.
Bella, yeah, you have. I just don't know unless you use the Bella you have at your house that you sometimes go with. But I don't know how you animatronic.
Here, give me 1 second. I can.
Oh, we're gonna get a surprise.
She happens to be sitting right next. She faces me. Oh wow! Maybe we should leave her like this.
We're getting appreciation from the live audience right now. I think they're getting ready to run out of here.
Wow, Bella looks crazy. Wow. Okay, hold on. She's wearing a Detroit Lions. I live outside of Detroit. Here we go, Bella. You can at least.
So does she sleep in the same room as you guys? I don't think I'd like to wake up to Bella.
Wow, look how real she looks right now. Wow. She looks like she's like really looking at you guys. Allison made this from scratch. Like there's like a skeleton. There's like a skeleton to this, like sort of like a rubber bandy. Like remember G.I. Joe figures had like rubber bands holding them together and stuff. She's got like that.
That's right.
Built inside her and everything. And then Allison made her for the theatrical reading of the book. How you doing? Still scared. Still scared. Oh, forever scared? Allison's gonna have to one day like paint her eyes, like lower her eyelids so that she doesn't look so scared all the time. All right, you don't care. Say hi.
Yeah, that's just I think some people are gonna have nightmares there tonight. Just thinking.
Yeah, she just sits. She hangs out. There's a couch on the other side of this computer.
Thank you for the Bella. It was wonderful to see her. Everyone appreciates that. I want to ask you about. I understand or just read that there's a new anthology coming out next year. I don't know how many people know about it. It's already been announced. I don't know if you read about The End of the World as We Know It.
Yeah,
which is for those who don't know, it's a bunch of fantastic writers who are playing in the Stephen King sandbox of The Stand. So they're all writing original stories based in the Stand's universe. And
Yeah.
Josh, I think you have a story in there, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I do. It's called I Love the Dead. Here's a little known fact about The Stand. Or I don't know if it's a little known fact, but I think it is. That Captain Trips, the name, is the name of the virus, right?
That's right.
I don't know if I get a chance, I will ask him. I don't know why he used that. That Captain Trips was Jerry Garcia. I can't believe that guy's come up twice in this conversation. That was his nickname through like the 60s was Captain Trips, Jerry Garcia, the Grateful Dead, and da-da-da. And it's always been very interesting to me that Stephen King called the virus Captain Trips. Like, I mean, there's even go Amazon or anything. I mean, I guess I would be surprised if you have Jerry Garcia's biography in the library, but maybe you do. But it's called Captain Trips. I mean, that's Jerry's name. And so it was a weird thing. So for me, and I'm not going to say any more than this about my story, but for me, I was like, okay, I'm toying with that link somehow. I'm using that somehow because I've never heard someone really point it out. You know, a lot of horror fans don't like the Grateful Dead because they're all noodly, you know, and like I like it all, but that to me was interesting. Like, why did he name it that? You know, I guess if I have a sit down with him, I'll ask him.
I know the books, the anthologies in 4 parts in terms of the first part is before the sickness, second part is during the sickness, third part is after the sickness, and the fourth part, it's a surprise. You're not telling us what that is at all at this point in time. What part are you writing for? And did they ask you to do that? Or you said, I want to write in this period of at least the other 3 parts?
Mine was, it's in the second part.
Right.
Yep. And so it's
was that your choice or was that there?
Oh no, great question. No, I guess I just chose that, but I think that Christopher Golden and Brian Keene, I think if everyone was writing in one part, they would have advised or guided people into other areas. I'll ask them about that, but I'm going to assume that they probably did because I got I got an email at one point that said like, hey, a lot of people are writing about animals, and I was about to write about an animal, and I was like, no, never mind, you know. So they were guiding it to a degree and wisely, you know. So I don't know though. I don't know if these fell naturally into their quadrants or not. I don't know.
So a question I always like to ask is, what are you working on now?
Okay, so this is super exciting. 2 things. First of all, and they're kind of similar. One is I shot a documentary, and this is something I've been wanting to do for years because I don't feel like social media, Twitter, whatever, Facebook, I don't feel like there's enough room to express the experience of writing a novel. I would finish a book and I'd be like, I've just finished a book. And everyone's like, yeah. And then I'm like, well, come on. That's it, Josh. I just finished, like, this experience was unbelievable. Like, how do I get across to an audience what this was like? So I was like, okay, one day, a few years ago, I was like, hey, document yourself writing a novel from idea to completion. Like, just idea, no outline or anything. Just literally film yourself having the idea to completion, a 500-page novel. So a few years ago, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it right now. And I like I set up the camera and I'm like, oh God, man, writing a book's work enough. I'm not doing this movie. Screw this. And then like 2 years ago, I was like, all right, I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to do it this time. And I was like, no, F no, you know? And then a year ago, I'm like, no, I'm doing it. I'm freaking doing it. And I did. I did it. I filmed like 50, 60 hours. And again, it starts with like, this is all I have. This is all I know. And I mean, I guess spoiler alert, by the end, he's printing out the book, right? And for me, it's a really special thing because there's no rules in it. It's not like a writer's guide or rules. But if there's a writer out there, or like a younger or a first-time writer or something, to see a dude like struggle through, like stumble through writing an entire novel and filmed over months, and he's also got his life going on and all this kind of stuff. I feel like that's the way to express it rather than, hey, I finished a new book today. And so I did it. And it's done and we submitted it to film festivals already. And I'm really excited about that. The other thing is, and this is why I said it was kind of similar, is I wrote a nonfiction book. But don't mistake that as me having done research. I'm definitely not that kind of dude. And what it was a night that Allison and I had about 12 years ago. Just an unbelievable night. Her and I had met a few months earlier. And then I meet Allison, and then about 4 months later, I got my first book deal in my life. So it was this amazing period for me of like falling in love. The books are maybe going so I was so broke at this period in time. I was living in a friend's hallway, and hallway, not even like basement, but anyway. And this period was just so wonderful. And Alice and I had this amazing night. And then I said to her the next morning, hey man, I could write a whole novel about, or a whole book about last night. And 12 years later, I did. So those are the two newer things. Oddly enough, they're both nonfiction, but I've also, written some books since then too. So, but those are the two newest things.
You mentioned earlier they'd written, I think it was 14 novels, you said, before Bird Box was published.
Yeah.
Are we ever going to see those in print?
Well, some of them are. Goblin was one of those. Unburied Carol was one of those. Inspection was one of those. And I think that's it. I think those three. Yeah. So the other 11, yeah, no. And I don't, maybe there's one or two that I feel like would need like oh my God, bunch of work. But really, I mean, so if I've written 40, Incidents is number 13 to come out. I mean, there's 27 books in this office that just haven't come out yet. That's a nice feeling. And overwhelming. It feels like the weight of the world crushing me also. Like, let's get these out.
Before you got published, with all the work you did ahead, previously, did you ever feel like this is overwhelming? This isn't working. I'm never going to be published. It sounds like it was just such a sudden, transition from not having work out there to, wow, look what's happening in a relatively short period of time.
Mm-hmm. No, it was.
Did you ever think of saying, I'm done, I'm giving up? Or
No. And it's like, I am still, but I was in a band with my best friends and we're touring the country. We're playing songs in a different, like Atlanta, like different city all the time, right? So there was this sense of like accomplishment or connecting with an audience or whatever. And in the meantime, I'm also writing novels. Like it would make sense that I felt like satiated, that I felt like creatively like satisfied. I'm like in Mississippi playing songs with my best friends, then writing the next day. Like it never started like feeling like that to me. Like I never looked at it like, oh, well, you might as well give up, because I hadn't even tried to shop them. That the pile was just growing and growing and growing, and we're playing songs and 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 a friend from high school, this is my big break of a moment in my life, is that a friend of mine from high school called and said, and this is funny, called and said, hey, I see online that you keep posting. I finished another book today. And he's like, I know a lawyer that I could send, one of your books to. Maybe he could help you. And that lawyer found the manager for me. So you could look at it like it's an insanely lucky thing, right?
Mhm.
That my friend from high school, Dave, wrote me. And it was insane. And I owe him and Ryan and like everything that's happened for me. At the same time, I was freaking ready for that luck. I was ready. I had like a dozen novels and thoughts on the novels and like confidence in myself as a writer. Like I was ready for that moment or something. So it was a weird way to get to where I am, but all it really was just writing, and something good came of that.
I saw another Zoom interview you had, or co-interview with Philip Fracassi.
Oh yeah.
And it came up that
yeah, I love
you
him.
talk about collaborating. You sort of hinted that it might be fun to do that. You gone forward with that, or or have you thought about
He would be
collaborating with
he
someone
would
else
be
as well?
wonderful to do that with. He would. Um, Number one, he is amazing, but number two, I just feel like he's just like an old school pro in a way. Not meaning that he's older, but like his mentality is sort of like old school pro. And um I don't know. No, haven't. I still haven't ever done something like that. But in the band, I mean, we're like host songwriters, Mark and I, so I'm very used to working with someone else, but no, I haven't done that with a book yet.
Um, I think we're going to open up to some questions right now. So thank you for your time. It's been wonderful. It's been a quick 45 minutes.
No,
So
I
we
know.
got
I
some
don't
people
even.
online, I think, and I know some people in the audience want to pick up with a question or two. He's more than here.
Wanted to know about a movie with then he answered the question on his latest book. So then hopefully that'll come out next year.
Oh, that would be incredible if that happens.
Hi, Josh. Hi. First, I have a question of my own because you had me cracking up the whole time. Are you going to write a comedy or do you do stand-up?
No, but that's about the highest compliment I've ever got in my life. I'm gonna tell Allison that, and she's gonna be like, she's gonna roll her eyes. I'm gonna tell, I'm gonna be like, hey, Allison, guess what, man?
I
Oh my
think you
God.
should do it.
I think, does that not sound like the scariest freaking thing ever? Like, you want to talk about nerves of steel. Like, I get up on stage with a band, but like, if you don't like me, maybe you like Mark or you like Steven on guitar, Derek, Chad on bass. And with the book, I'm not in the room when you read it. And with a movie, I'm not in the room if you see it. But comedy, can you imagine that? How scared, man? I would like pee my pants, man. If I had to like get up there and like make this room laugh, I would be like shaking. But
I,
now you're making me want to give it a try.
I think you should. I think you should. I'd love to see that show. We do have a question here. You may have touched on it, but I'll go ahead and ask you. It says, which of your books is your favorite, or do you have a favorite?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Incidents is up there for sure. That the whole experience of I keep coming back to it, but it was novel. It was profound to me. The whole musiclessness of it all was really interesting, guys. Like, I would advise if there's any writers out there, especially a horror author, like dark room, no sound, sit there with your story. I mean, it was intense. But Ghoul in the Cape, one I did with Earthling, means a great deal to me. That is a beast of a book. That's 300,000 words, whereas Incidents is like 70,000, I think. So I mean, it's four and change times the length. Bird Box, obviously. I always imagine like when I'm talking about like my favorite ones, I always imagine like I'm dad and all the books are kids, right? And we're sitting at the dining room table, and I'm like, my favorite one, and I'm talking, and Bird Box is looking at me like, oh, really? Really, Dad? Not me? Right. Yeah. Dad, I'm the reason we're all eating tonight, right? And I'm like, oh no, we love you, Bird Box. No, no, you are. No, you're right. You're right. No, Bird Box, she's my favorite. She's
Thought of another question. You talked about music. So what's the first concert you saw that was your choice, not that someone dragged you to? First concert.
That's a great question because everyone always just says the first one their parents took them to. But the first one my parents took me to, just to throw it out because it's awesome, is the Beach Boys. But this is past Brian Wilson. This was like 80s or something. This is like John Stamos on drums or something. And I loved it. And I love the Beach Boys still. And the first one that I went to, wow, I went with my friends to like the early Lollapalooza, like the second one of those. And that was a real novel thing at the time. You're talking like mid 90s or something. I mean, it was weird, it was wild. Like Beastie Boys, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think I saw Smashing Pumpkins. I think Soundgarden. I mean, it was really wild. But the first time I ever went out and bought tickets on my own was for Erasure. Do you know Erasure?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was at this cool like place in town, and it was kind of like it was a little freaky. I brought my younger brother, and it was like everyone there was super stylish and like wearing leather and like all this, and I just felt like oh my God, where are we? And it was awesome. The singer comes out in this like swan, and I was like, what? This is amazing. And that was kind of like the first like on your own, neither your parents or your friends told you about it. You went and did this.
I think my first concert was Blue Oyster Cult.
Oh, wow. That'd be amazing.
So yeah, that's the first show I saw. That was a lot of
Yeah.
fun. And I was they mentioned that I was a disc jockey at the college radio station,
Yeah.
and our format was new wave punk, WRAS album 88, and that was a lot of fun. That music still resonates with me to this day. So
Yeah, and Erasure is like of that ilk, of that new wave ilk. It's a little more like theatrical or something, but that like electronic before electronic kind of, like they had the two guys. There was the electronic dude and the singer.
right.
And then at the time, like the Eurythmics or something, were they like that too or something?
That's right.
Yeah, right. And like at the time, that was real weird. It's like, where's the drums?
Oh, you had drum machines.
Yeah.
They said a lot of the keyboards and
Yeah.
the singers had that monotonish kind of way of singing a lot too.
I love
as well.
that stuff. I love that stuff.
Well, thank you both so much. We have comments in here in the chat that said, Jim, they're thanking you for all of your fantastic questions. And Josh, you have been entirely entertaining. Thank you so much. We are so happy for your success. And please stop by the next time you're in the area.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. And I know I don't want to say it too much because it's like whatever, but I cannot thank you enough, Jim, especially. I mean, all of you, everyone, but thank you. I like the first time was COVID. The second time was like, wait, what's going on? Am I seriously not like, is this seriously happening again? Not COVID, and I was like, come on, dude. And so for you to be like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Like, it almost makes me want to cry. Like, thank you very much because this was awesome and this was fun. And I'm glad that I got to at least like connect with you guys on any level. And this was actually a very good level, better than I thought it would be in terms of like Zoom, right? And I thank you. You could have been like, no, whatever, dude, but you didn't. You were like, let's do it. And thank you for that.
But well, we thank you for agreeing to do it. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. Good night.
All right. Oh, that's it. I leave now, right? This is where I like.
That's right.
Okay. That's my cue, eh? Right. Okay.
That's right. Bye.